Earlier in the show, we showed you how President Obama is getting frustrated with America's inability to enact proper gun control. Turns out he's also very frustrated with Congress, and he said this at a fundraiser, quote, "I am frustrated, and you have every right to be frustrated, because Congress doesn't work the way it should. Issues are left untended. Folks are more interested in scoring political points than in getting things done." And when talking about his own election in 2008, he reminded the crowd that what he said was, "Yes, we can," not "yes, I can," basically saying, hey, it's not all on me to necessarily fix Congress in a way like this. First of all, Mr. Mayor, is the president right in that Congress is both dysfunctional, but that it's not necessarily all his fault, it's Congress's as well?
Oh, I think absolutely he's right. I mean, by any standard you want to examine, the level of polarization and partisanship in Congress, and for that matter in the country as a whole, is higher than it's ever been. And I don't think it is reasonable to expect any political figure, any president, to be able to overcome the deep-seated cultural and political and campaign finance and interest group trends that have brought us to this point.
But some of this is his fault. We hear from our Republican friends all the time that, you know, he hasn't talked to Republicans, he doesn't have drinks with Republicans, he doesn't play golf with Republicans, he has not been a good friend in that regard.
Well, if we're going to issue an honest assessment of this president,
please, or just lie to us.
I think that perhaps his people skills, as it relates to interacting with Republicans, may not be his highest grade. And now I understand what the mayor said about the frustrations, but I remember covering Mr. Obama in New Hampshire and Nevada, and I was at the Denver Stadium when there was, I believe, almost 80 to 100,000 people there. When he ran, he said, "Yes, we can," and he was supposed to be the guy to get it done. So you can't 8 years later turn around and say, "Well, I didn't just mean me. I meant all of us," even though it's not just on the president. He's got to interact with the Republicans, but he's fallen short of the expected
Did
outcome.
we expect too much from him? Did we fall for a line?
Of course we fell for a line, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, he just, he was able to capitalize. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I see you want to respond.
We expect too much of every president.
Yes.
Every president, when they hold up their hand and take the oath of office, there's that moment of the inaugural when all things are possible, and then there's a reality in which some things are possible and some things are not. But I think we're selling Obama short if we don't credit what was accomplished under very difficult circumstances. I mean, a revolution in healthcare, which has transformed the lives of tens of millions of Americans. Fundamental changes in the way we regulate electricity in this country, which is going to have a big measurable impact on climate change. We've seen a package of efforts which saved us from a second Great Depression.
Most of it's a long time ago,
and
Mayor.
What was the case a long time ago?
It was Democrats
had supermajorities in the Congress, which enabled the president to get things done. And although I appreciate the point about maybe he should be a better schmoozer and all that kind of thing, and people point to LBJ as the model of someone who knew how to sort of read the motivations of everybody around him and push just the right buttons, people forget LBJ had some of the biggest majorities in Congress in history, and after 1966, when he lost those supermajorities, he was completely ineffective. So the schmoozing is only going to get you so far.
Last point on this, we have less than a minute. My takeaway is that gridlock and obstructionism has proven successful. Republicans have actually succeeded at what they intend to do with everything except kicking him out of the White House in 2012. Is there any reason to think that we don't get the same level of obstructionism no matter who the next president is?
No, there's no reason to believe that. And I say that not with any pleasure at all, because I think it's a huge problem. And so just to be a little abstract for a moment, our issue right now, I think, is that we have a political culture and a set of institutions that are a bad match for each other. This sort of checks and balances and two houses of the legislature and split authority works very well in a low partisanship environment where most people are acting as sort of independents. But in a high partisanship environment, the checks and balances, which usually achieve sort of moderate outcomes, end up instead achieving complete gridlock. And you can make a sort of an abstract political science argument that we'd be better off with a parliamentary system in which one side or the other gets the authority to enact whatever changes they want, and then there's clear accountability at the next election, and people throw them out or keep them on that basis. But right now, the chain of accountability is confused because if people don't like what's going on, they don't really know who's responsible.
And speaking of whomever is our next president, up next, Hillary Clinton is seeing Bernie Sanders in her rearview mirror, and he's getting closer in a pivotal state. Should Hillary be worried?